first period starts with 1770 to 1900. This is called the period of awakening. Now, why do we call this period as awakening? 1770 to 1900. Actually, we had the as such, we don't say that there is industrial revolution at all, and there is a laissez-faire policy of the government. And then, moreover, people were considered as cogs in the machine. There were no holidays. The daily working hours were very, very long, maybe sometimes 16 to 18 hours. They used to work in a day without any breaks, and sometimes you hardly get a break for the lunch. And moreover, it was the worst situation where there was no distinction between the men, women, and children. So during that time, Robert Owen, he was the person who actually devoted himself, and there was little development or growth, I have to say, in the procurement of the facilities of the labor. So thanks. Now we got back the sharing. And then we had the second period, which is called as period of awareness. And this is from 1900 to 1920. Now here we had the Frederick Taylor, that is the father of the scientific management. He has given the 14 principles of the management. And with this 14 principles of the management, there was help to find the right men for the work. And you also determine their psychological condition. And also there was a favorable period of work environment where you can work, and the worker had a positive attitude towards the work. And then we have the 1920 to 1960. This is the period of analysis, wherein we had the unionism, which spread rapidly. And moreover, there were many countries who introduced legislations in the support of their labor unions in the interest of the labor. And then when we are talking about the Indian context, before independence, 1860 to 1947, you all know, actually, the working conditions of the labor was very, very poor, and we were under Britishers' rule. So the same condition was prevalent, no holidays. Sometimes people were forced to work 24 hours a day without a holiday, without a break. Okay, and simply they were tortured to work. I mean, work. There was no break. And how much they used to get? The wages were very, very meager. And during that time, the Factories Act 1881 was made in the interest of the workers, and the Bombay Mills Association had the first labor association. And this trade union movement has somehow tried to bring peace in the factory, but it was all in vain because we had the First World War during that time. And the ILO, which has formed in the year 1919, and the All India Trade Union Congress in the year 1920, and we also had the Trade Unions Act in 1926. They were all supporting the labor welfare and the condition of the labor. And the Royal Report of the Royal Commission of the Labor 1931 has also brought some light into the ordeals of the workers, how they are working, how they are being tortured, how they are being overworked. And some kind of, reconciliation should come in the status of the workers. So all these things were thought, and we had the Bombay Trade Disputes Conciliation Act, which was passed in the year 1934, and wherein there was a labor welfare officer which has been appointed by the government, and they started eliminating and resolving the conflicts. And then we have the post-independence, we had the Factories Act 1948, and then Factories Act and Mines Act, okay, which has been elaborated. And then in the year January 26, 1950, we had the Constitution, and then wherein the people were democratic principles were followed to uplift the status of the workers especially. And during the period 1970 and 80, there were the typical HRM functions, which included the personnel and administration. Personnel, in the sense, the people. And then you had the industrial relations, and then you had the labor welfare. And during the period 1880 and 90, Uday Parekh and T.B. Rao introduced the development concept, and which is nothing but the human resources development and human resource management. So These were the two concepts which have evolved, and there were some things which were brought into the favor of the human resources. And in 2000, the HR professionals began responding to the challenges. Okay, so firstly, the HR business partners or the strategic partners providing the people related interventions. And then they have the functional expertise, such as the employee relations or the reward management. And HRM is centralized at one location, but sometimes it is also outsourced based on the requirement. And coming to the objectives. Now, the objectives of the HRM are societal level objectives. That is, you need to develop the human capital. Now, human capital in the sense, it can be the intellectual capital, a specialized knowledge, social capital, where we have the network relationships, and we have the emotional capital, like the self-confidence and the kind of risk the employees take, or the ambitions and the courage they have. And apart from that, we have to foster the peace. The industrial relations functions, they try to promote better understanding and cooperation amongst the employees. And then we have the contribution to the economic development. See, whatever we do, there should be a part of the contribution for the overall economy development. And then we have the organizational level objectives, where we need to have competent workforce, and you need to utilize the human resources 100% to the core so that they can achieve the organizational goals. And apart from that, you also have the individual level objectives, where you need to have the democracy, right for the freedom. Okay, you need to have the self-development. Okay, you can have the power to say your opinion, voice your opinions. Okay, and you also have a strategy where you try to take the innovative projects and decisions. And whatever efforts you are putting, for that you need to have the rewards. Okay, the reward, whatever work you are doing, you need to be paid equivalent. You are supposed to get the benefit of the work what you are doing. And then you need to also have the career growth. If you have joined as a clerk, till the retirement, you don't want to be in the organization as a clerk. You want your career to be developed, maybe clerk, then senior clerk, then accountant, or maybe the junior, senior and junior, or then you need to executive, then you be a manager, senior level manager. So you want your career to be upskilling, that is going in the upward direction. And what are the basic characteristics of HRM? It is a social process because it needs both the individual development as well as group development. Okay, HRM is about people. You have to remember that when I'm talking about HRM, it is the human resources, what you're managing, what you're governing, and what you're developing. So the employees, they have to develop themselves individually so that they achieve the overall organizational goals. So in a way, you achieve your individual goals, your career is growing, your salary is growing, your wages are growing, your standard of living is growing, so as the organization. So as you're growing, even the organization is growing. Okay, and a staff or service activity. So HRM is always a staff function. Staff function, in the sense, they are the specialized people, they are the talented people who have the resources, they have the equipment, and they have the ideas how to develop them. So the line managers, they only help in motivating the employees, and they try to govern and control and maintain discipline. Whereas the staff people are the experts in their field. And it is a pervasive process, pervasive in the sense, it induces developing and making employees perform their jobs with more responsibility. Every supervisor will be governing, but you need not allow a supervisor to say what has to be done. You need to follow your own rules and regulations and complete the task within the time specified. And HRM is definitely an art because it is skill-based activity. And maybe the moment you're joining an organization as a worker or a labor, you're not skilled, but you're trained and you develop your skills, and slowly you become a talented person in performing that particular task. So that is why it is related to art. And it is an interdisciplinary science. Because why science? Because it has a body of knowledge with principles and techniques. You need to apply the techniques. You need to apply some kind of the principles. Okay. So it has the contributions from all the fields. When I'm saying HRM, it is not only related to the management. It has parts of economics, parts of behavioral sciences. Like you have the psychology, you have the sociology, you have the anthropology, and you also rely on the politics. And HRM is a profession. It is a continuous process. Once you have the HRM, the management of the people cannot be on and off. It is a continuous process and it is strategic in nature. You need to be very strategic in implementing the policies and integrating the strategic business planning with the overall perspective of the human resources. And it is a hard and soft approach. Yeah. It emphasizes on the close integration of the human resources, and at the same time, it exploits for the maximum returns or for the maximum benefits. Now, coming to the scope of the HRM. Earlier, the HRM, the traditional view of the HRM was only limited to the employment and payment of the wages, the salary system, the administration of the workers. Only these were there. But now we have a function where we have V is equal to function of PCDI. So what is V? It stands for the value of the human assets. And the function of the human assets includes the procurement of the right kind of the human resources, that is the workers or the employees, pay the kind of compensation, it can be the salaries and the wages, develop their skills, provide training and provide the development, and then you integrate all these aspects for the overall success of the organization. So this is the scope where you get the value by integrating all these four. Now coming to the importance. Now HRM is a staff or support function in the organization. So it is a role which is provided which assists the HRM matters to the line employees. So basically HRM is a staff function, and the importance of the HR manager can be he helps in active and critical resource power. Okay, he will manage the entire human resources who are there in the organization, and it is a very critical for making organizations active and productive. And he presents the as a HR manager, we also have the HR manager's conflict, whether he's a management member or a member of the employees. Employees feel that the HR manager always gives the instructions as per the management, so he belongs to the management side. And the management feels that HR person or the HR manager is a person who represents the people, that is the employees, hence he belongs to the employees side. And yes, a HR manager has to balance this too, where he needs to convey what the people, the employees are feeling. He has to give a suggestion to the management and also convince the management at times. And sometimes whatever the decision the management has taken should be convinced with the employee. So he plays a very typical role, a fiddle role between the management and the employees. And he will be trying to integrate the people with the organization. So whatever the principles are there, whatever the policies are there, whatever the rules are there, regulations, all these are there, these have to be channelized and these have to be directed in the right direction. And it also results in incongruence between the individual and the organizational goals. So it has to, the HR manager has to bring the synergetic teamwork. Now, only the teamwork can be producing the output. So the team has to work with cooperation so that whatever the individual outputs are there, individual goals are there, they can be achieved, as well as the overall goals of the organization can also be achieved at the same time. And then you have the talent for competitive advantage. Good human resources management will try to attract good talent and also try to retain them in the organization for a longer period, and also promote work culture working environment. Okay, so you have when we are talking about the work environment, you have multiple people who come with multiple backgrounds, with different cultures, different languages, different attitudes, okay, different behavioral habits, and you have to come at a place where you have to be cooperative and adjust yourself with the environment. So you need to promote a work culture where, with whatever backgrounds you are there, once you enter the organization, you try to work with the same spirit what others have. Okay, and then you have that contributes to good performance and success. Definitely, you hire the committed workforce, you hire the people who have skill, and then you transform them according to your workplace requirements, that is, you train them. And then finally, you try to see what is the output they are giving to the organization. And definitely, it will follow the legal obligations. We have the Factories Act 1948, the Employment Standing Orders Act 1946, and then we have the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. We also have the Trade Unions Act 1926. Okay, we have the Minimum Wages Act. So many acts are there. So all these acts are there to protect the workers and the employees from the clutches of the organization, as well as protect the interests of the organization from the trade unions. Okay, so the legal obligations will definitely be there, and you also have the ethical obligations, like you cannot discriminate between male and female, you cannot discriminate between the regions, the languages, the backgrounds. There should not be any harassment or the exploitation, and you need to also adapt yourself to the technology. Whatever the latest technology is there, that has to be adapted, and then you need to motivate yourself to work in that sphere. And then you have the employment cycle and the key process areas of HRM. Now, what do you mean by the employment cycle? So if you see here, where you have the employment cycle, where recruitment is done, okay, and then you have the allotment of the work, and then you have the retaining strategies, you have the payment strategies, and then you also have the successive planning. So manpower planning is nothing but human resource planning. As a manager, you need to plan appropriately, like how many you require for the work, okay, for the work what has been allotted, how many skilled workers you need, semi-skilled, unskilled, okay, and what is the period of the requirement. And if they are permanent employees in that, and in coming 1 or 2 months, or in coming 1 or 6 to 8 months, say 5 people are retiring, they are skilled, you need to hire the right people so that the people will be get trained from the retiring person. So by the time they retire, you have the skill with you, trained staff with you. So that is what is the manpower planning. You need to see like how many you need, what is the procurement, how many are leaving, if the separations are going on, do you have the people, the right kind of the people to perform the job or not? You need to plan these things. And job design and analysis. What is job analysis? Job analysis, nothing but identifying the job and making the people ready for the job, like job description, where you describe the job. Okay, so what a worker or an employee is supposed to do will be told in the job description. Job specification, the required qualifications or specifications to perform that particular job are specified in the job specification. Sometimes you have employee specification. So what is employee specification? You want the employee also specified. Apart from the job specification, you want the person, say, with some minimum education or some qualification, you specify. Employee specification, where you say that the person should be of so and so height, his vision should be so and so, his chest or width should be so and so, where you try to give the employee specifications which are required to perform that particular job. So all these are done in the job design and analysis. And then you go with the recruitment. Recruitment is giving an advertisement asking the prospective people to apply in the organization and join the organization. Then you have the selection. For the selection, you have different kinds of tests or the process. You have only the interview and selection. You have certain tests. Once you qualify the written test, then you have the interview. And then before the interview, sometimes you have the job test also, where you will be given some job and then you're tested whether you're able to do it or not. And then finally, the medical examination will be there. And based on all these results, you will be selected. And once you're boarded, you need to have the induction where you will be introduced with the organization, the policies, the rules and regulations, the HR policies, the employees and everything. And then you should also have a proper reward or compensation, which generally attracts and motivates and retains the employees. So for that, you need to have a very good wage and salary administration process. Sometimes the incentives, the monetary incentives, the cash incentives which are given to the employees will also definitely improve the morale and motivation. And sometimes you also have the welfare and health safety benefits, where you take the safety precautions for the development for the purpose of retaining the employees. Then also you have the development. So the development is where you basically develop the skills of the employee once they join the organization. So it can be the training and development. You train them, you develop them, and based on that, you appraise their performance, that is giving the increments. And you also do the personal audit, where you try to see like how much is the amount or money you have spent on the employee for hiring, training, and developing, and the wages what you're paying, and how much he is giving back to you. Generally, it is called as HR accounting. So where you try to balance this. And then the integration is nothing but you need to integrate the individuals and groups, organization, and all the community together and see whether the results are achieved or not. And you also have the discipline and the grievance redressal. You also, when the discipline, the process of rules and regulations which are to be followed. If not followed, what kind of an action can be taken? The grievance, the problems, what they have, the conflict, if there's any problem in the organization, how the resolving process is done, and how the workers are being participative in the management decisions, workers' participation in the management, and the collective bargaining, the group bargaining, where you try to get the results. So when we are talking about the human resource management and the personal management, now personal management is a very, very larger term, wider term, and human resource management is part of it. So personal management deals with the machines, whereas HRM deals with the assets. And moreover, if you see the differences, you try to be more specific to the personal management than the human resource management. Human resource management will deal a lot of human related aspects than the personal management. Now coming to the HRM and HRD. HRM is human resource management function. It is a system function, whereas HRD is the subsystem of the human resource management, human resource development. So what kind of development process you are being following, that is dealt here. And HRD need not be always continuous. Now coming to the strategic and the traditional HRM. In the traditional HRM, as I said, it dealt only with the basic aspects of the human resources. Whereas the strategic management, it is the job dealt by the line managers. So the HR, that is the staff specialist and line specialist. So if you see the differences, staff are less flexible, less transactional, and they are short and medium, and moreover, they deal with the key capital products. and vice versa is the strategic HRM. And coming to the HR manager's role, so it is more like a staff role. So he's a line person as well as a staff person, and he's a counselor, he's a mediator, he's a coordinator, and he deals all the aspects relating to the HR. And then you have the HR innovator and integrator, change champion, technology proponent. Now, earlier, pertaining to a company, one of the worker was continuously absent for the work. So the HR manager has some doubts like why the particular labor was not coming. So he went to the house of that particular worker and checked him. And the worker was in a very poor condition because his wife was not well. She had some ailment and he doesn't have money to cure the wife. And for that purpose, he was very sad and he stopped going to the work and he was with his wife. The moment HR manager has seen all this, he just went back to the management and has given an application considering to, making an application to consider the state of this worker. Immediately, the management responded and they paid the hospital bills of the wife, and she recovered and the worker was very happy. The moment he came back to the work, he told all his fellow workers that this is what has happened and how the management and the HR manager has helped them to cope the situation. And immediately they all felt that if something happens to us or our family, we have an organization, the management is considerate, they are going to look after us. So this is what the HR manager will do. Okay, so in a way, he will try to group in the activities. That is what I saw. The consigns role, capacity builder, credible activist. So all this is done by the HR manager. Now, coming to the next aspect, that is the organization structure and HR policies. So HR functions are usually performed by the owner or the works manager. Now, whenever the organization size is increasing, so you have the HR department separately, which has been specified to do the functioning, like grouping the personnel, assigning the functions to them, delegating the work to them, delegating the authority and seeing whether the work has been completed or not, coordination. So these are the functional HR departments where there is a general manager for HRM, and then you have the different set of managers, one dealing with recruitment, one dealing with wages, one dealing with the training and development, one dealing with the human resources integration system. So different positions are there, and each positions will have the genetic activities like the payrolls and the leaves. And then you also have the specialist activities where you try to hire, recruit, select, train, and develop, and the performance assessment. And you also have the locations head across, where and when the scarcity of the workers are there, they try to plan and just transfer them. So what are the factors influencing? The first and foremost, the size of business. Earlier, the business size was very small, so you did not require any HR manager. But now the size of the organization is very large, where you have more than 1,000 employees working. So for a single HR manager, it is very difficult. So that is where you try to have the different levels, that is different levels of managers who are going to take into consideration the activities. So the manufacturing organization or knowledge-based organization, service organizations, or senior management. So anywhere you see, so based on the size and the nature of the business, you try to categorize the human resource management. And what are the positions of the HR managers? The positions of the HR managers can be in line organizations. You have owner and the manager, where you have the personal assistant for the manager, and for the owner you have the work supervisor. So all these people, they govern the Factories Act, and based on the Factories Act, you need to, for every 500 workers or more, so the employer shall appoint a person who is going to be acting as an advisor. And then for the line organizations with specialists, but without functional decentralization, you have the owner or the managing director. You have the production manager under whom the work supervisor will be there, the labor welfare officer will be there, and you also have a marketing officer who are going to deal with the marketing activities. So HR manager in functional and the project organization, they see the decentralized and or sometimes fully decentralized HR function, wherein they typically deal with their own structural factors. Like you have the general manager, technical director, branch factory manager, and then you have the personal officer, and then you have the different other levels. For this, you need also study the HR director. So you have a technical director who's going to deal with the accountability of the organization, and the HR director who deals with the people. And then HR director is generally accountable to the general manager, vice president, branch manager, or vice president HR. So the role of the HR manager is to HR planning. He needs to plan the human resources. He needs to do the staffing, talent acquisition should be there, design, survey, and they have to train them and check the performance. And you need to plan for the compensation, that is the wages or the salaries, whatever you're paying. And then the employee relations, the safety relations, or it can be the employee welfare or employee rights in the organization. So you also have the HR policies. A policy is a predetermined selected course established as a guide, and this has been propounded by Dale Yoder. And what does the HR policy formulation deal with? It deals with the identifying the need, that is where the need of the employees is there, okay? And if the employees are being hired, what is the expected outcome, okay? What can be the outcome which can be achieved? It can be pertaining to the work culture or the values or the missions of the organization or the organizational goals. For that, you need to gather the information, okay? So the experience or the expectations, the past practices of the organization, how they are recruiting the people, okay? And the attitude of the employees. And then you need to, if suppose the past policies are not good, you need to examine the alternative policies. And then once you decide about the alternative policies, you have to put them in writing so that they are there in the concern. And once the approval is given, then the HR policy has to be communicated to the employees. And once it is communicated, if it is applicable, you need to do the evaluation. So all the employees in the organization will follow the HR policy. It is equal and it is same. For example, it can be the leave policies, or it can be the dress code, or it can be the hierarchy, or it can be the promotion strategy, or it can be the welfare measures, which are common. So such will be considered in the HR policies. So the HR policies can be functional policies, that is, it can be the procurement of the employees, recruitment, training and development, deciding about the salaries, that is the compensation, and integration policies. And you also have the overall policies such as equity, treating each and every employee equally and fairly, taking the individual circumstances into consideration and making appropriate decisions. That is the consideration, what do we say? Sometimes the rules have to be modified a little bit depending upon the case. Organizational learning and the performance through the people. So you need to balance your work life and whatever the quality of the work life is there consciously and continually, where you try to improve your quality of work life. So definitely that will decrease the monotony or lethargy, laziness. I mean, you have more variety to do. Your work is always enthusiastic. Okay, so such kind of things come under work life, quality of work life, working conditions, and you also have the specific policies such as, the harassment. It can be the normal harassment or the sexual harassment if women employees are involved, bullying or teasing, smoking, and sometimes sending emails which are very offensive. So all these are also dealt in the HR policies. Now, in formulating the policies, you need to involve the line managers because these are the people who actually control the employees. They follow the rules and regulations. They have the discipline in their hands. So definitely the line managers have to be considered. And then when the written policies are there, always that should be having a supportive culture. So acceptance of the employees is also required. Always your policy should be matching your organizational culture. And if a trade union is there, you need to take the consultation of the trade union also, if at all you're making any changes in the policies. And external influence, like it can be the outside legislations or the amendments in the act. And in drafting the policies, you make policies very clear. The statement should be very clear, easily understandable, no confusion, no 2 or 3 statements in one single line. So it should be very clear. And whatever the policy is there, that should be focusing on the statement and what is the expected benefit. And you need to evaluate the HR policies. This can be the regular evaluation. Okay, so you need to review the policies and you have to see that whether there is any gap in understanding. And you should also review from the legal perspective. If at all the law says that or law amends, makes any changes in the existing, so those have to be also incorporated. And then you have the next one, environment and trends. So as all of us are living in an environment, even HRM lives in an environment. I mean, it is influenced by the environment. So it can be the external environment, which is outside the environment, or it can be the internal environment, which is there within the organization. And as you know, the external environment is always uncontrollable environment because all the external factors are there. And internal environment is within the organization. You can definitely control the effects or the impacts. So the impact of business environment on HRM, if you see, you have the liberalization policies, you have the privatization, globalization, which come under politico-legal, social and cultural, you have the new generation, the workforce diversity, and technological computerization is there, outsourcing is there, re-engineering is there, and economic downsizing and customization. So how does that influence? Your mission is influenced, strategy is influenced, structure, policy, systems, and culture. All these have an impact on the HR function. So if you see the impact, the political-legal factors, like you have the liberalization of the licensing policy, like you had earlier, FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. Now we have FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act, and then we have the MRTP, Monopolies Restrictive Trade Practices Act. So these have restricted the trade practices, fraudulent practices, and FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, dealt with the exports and the imports, transforming the foreign capital and the fiscal and the monetary reforms. All these were dealt under the liberalization. The privatization, where the public sector being transformed into a private sector, like we have the telecom sector, we have the telecom sector, and then we have the insurance sector, we have the transport sector. So many sectors are being privatized. So privatization definitely has its effect on the HR environment. And then you have the globalization. So globally, we are everywhere. We can move without any boundaries from any place to any place. All these will definitely have the effects on the human resource management. And then you have the new generation, that is the millennial. Now we said the Gen Z from 1997 onwards. Oh, I mean, these people, they have a different skill, a different set of understanding, technological dependence. Okay, so the idea of the professionalism, the professional work, the relationship, these people come with a different set of definitions. So you need to deal with the new generation. And then you have the workforce diversity. Earlier, the people were localized. So if I'm in this town, in this city, I'm going to work in this city. But nowadays, people are moving from one place to another place. Leave the cities. They are moving the boundaries, the states. Sometimes they are moving the countries, across the countries. So diversified employees come with diversified cultures, languages, and then they have their own attitudes, their own understandings. So you need to deal with all that. And the gender mainstreaming, the business work towards the gender diversity. Like if you see, more than half of the female folk are working now. Earlier, the jobs which were done only by male counterparts are now being done by the women. So the gender mainstreaming, the flexi time, the leave policies, or the maternal or paternal leave, these are all the new terms what have to be incorporated in the HRM. And then you have the technological factors where computers are everywhere, networking is there. We have the fax, we have the telecom within the mobiles, whatnot. We are doing so many things with the technology. We are outsourcing. We are not asking our own employees to do the work. Sometimes we are outsourcing our company's work to some other company so that they are going to do the work quickly and give it back. And then we have outsourcing. You have the BPOs, that is the business process outsourcing employees, the continuous improvement programs, re-engineering works, where the organizations do their business and directly they are going to affect the employees. Okay, so which sometimes leads to the frustration, but which is unavoidable. And you have the economic factors, downsizing, attrition rate. You don't want your employees more in number, you just cut them down, or you do the customerization. Because of the global competition, you try to customize the employees. Okay, so mass production and the emergence of the new age customers, and based on their tech savvy behavior, you try to do the companies customerize, and that definitely affects the overall jobs in the organization. And then you also have certain internal factors, like what are the internal environment which has the effect on the HRM, like the mission, whatever the mission. What is the mission? That is the objective, the goal. For what purpose the very existence of the company is there. So once you start a company with a mission, you cannot go beyond what you have said in the mission. Okay, so you have to follow the objectives. Whatever the objective or whatever the mission says, you need to focus on that. And what is a vision? A vision is nothing but what you try to visualize yourself after a period of 10 years or 20 years. Okay. And then the strategy, a strategy is nothing but which is linked with the organizational strategy. You need to plan your objectives and goals as per the strategy. And then you have the structure which influences the HR practices. So it can be the level of authority, whether it is flowing from top to bottom or bottom to top. So what kind of a structure, organizational structure, which is being followed? What are the policies, the HR policies which are framed by the HR department? What kind of a system the organizations are following? What kind of the culture they have in the organization? Now coming to the systems approach to HRM, what is a system? A system is an integrated whole consisting of interdependent parts of the subsystem. A system consists in simple subsystems. So an organization is a system, and the subsystems are the various departments what they have. Each subsystem will have certain processors. They have their own inputs and outputs, and each subsystem is defined by their own profits and losses. Each subsystem is followed by an authority, some kind of a person who will be taking care of the decisions of that subsystem. And definitely there's a feedback which will be going back about the organization, whether they are working properly or not. So This is how the systems they work. So each system has subsystems, and the subsystems are accountable to the system, and overall you check the profits or losses. So from the view of the HRN, you have the manpower, you have the transformations, you have the output, you have the subsystems like the planning, acquisition, training, development, and then you have supra-system also, where you are focused on the environment, and you have certain boundaries where you cannot go beyond the boundaries, and there is a feedback system which will try to always govern the functions and the activities of the human resource management. So the goal of the organization is not always to gain profits or to show that someone is wrong or someone is correct. So it can be the causal factors also, like the sales effort, the quality, compensation, distribution, satisfaction level. So all these factors will also have its effect on the systems approach. Now, this systems approach is also called as a holistic approach because it refers the whole or big picture as well as the element of the subsystem, that is both at the macro level as well as at the micro level. So what are the trends in the HRM practices? You have outcome mindset. HR is always evolved in the process-centric function, and they are analytics-based decision making. You analyze everything, you try to think, and then you try to find the solution and make a decision making. You have the global leadership because it believes in the global leadership building. More and more global leaders are required to have the global building, leadership building, I mean to say. And then you have the shift in jobs. Okay, so more or less we have, new technologies, labor intensive sectors, manufacturing sectors, agricultural sectors, capital intensive. So many are there. So in many organizations, the middle and the first job, entry level jobs are disappearing. Okay, now the shift is towards the emerging service sector, where it is basically tech-based white-collar jobs. And they are the end of the fixed jobs. As a result, what is happening? The industry is becoming very narrower, and they want the specific set of skills to be employed. And basically, the students are being shaped as employees. You might have seen the trends of the internship programs. More and more companies are coming forward and providing the internships so that they are training them, so that they just come into the organization as an employees. And there is continuous skill development because you need to have the talent. Without talent, you will not be hired. And you also have the employees experience. So whenever the employees are shifting, definitely their experiences are considered, taken as a feedback so that that can be put on the paper and taken care. And then you have the online and the real-time learning, okay, which the employees, online learning has emerged, which help the employees learning in the real time. And you also have the flexible work arrangements, work from home, different shift timings where you can work during the night. Morning you can study. So some kind of flexi hours of work. And always the corporate social responsibility or the community services, which play a very predominant role in the overall workforce diversions. So in a way, we see that the HR functioning in every organization is being diversified, modified, improved by putting so many factors into consideration and trying to meet the latest or the required aspects to prove that the current human resources are going to perform better for the overall development of the organization as well as the individual growth. And coming to the next important aspect is the human resource planning. Now, what is human resource planning? It deals with the HR function, how you are planning. Human resource planning is nothing but manpower planning. how you are planning the manpower, in what better way, like how much is required for which job, how many skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled are required. If in future any separations are there due to retirement or due to contract, so do you have enough number of people who are going to fill that gap or not? Okay. And how many additions you want? In that additions, what is the basic level of entry? What are the basic qualifications you are looking at? So these things has to be planned, and these will be planned based on the job analysis. You need to analyze the job. Job is nothing but the work. Okay. Whatever work the particular person is doing, that has to be analyzed. So what is a job? It refers to a paid position of regular employment in an organization. So a job is a collection or aggregation of tasks, duties, and responsibilities which are very, very important to complete the regular assignment as an employee. So what is job analysis? Job analysis refers to the process of identifying and determining the duties and responsibilities and specifications of a job. So what is a job? It refers to the paid position or an employment. Analysis refers to the process of identifying what are the duties and responsibilities to perform that job, and what are the specifications you are setting aside for that particular job. So job analysis has the following objectives. So it has to develop the description, to describe the job, and to specify the job. And it has to simplify the work. And it will break the job into many pieces and sub-pieces. And they remove the unnecessary elements of a job. And they have to set up the standards for the job. Okay, that is the minimum acceptable results for the performance of that particular job. And what are the personal activities which are to be supported? Okay, like the recruitment, selection, training, and development. All these are the support personal activities what are required. Now, the uses can be, the job analysis will tell that how difficult the job is or how easy the job is to be performed. Okay, so the uses part will continue tomorrow and then we'll proceed. So it's already 3. So I'll just stop sharing and conclude the class. So tomorrow we will have the continuation of this. Okay.
Okay, madam.